So it all comes down to, what does your leadership team, what do your people need to understand about competing in the transient advantage economy? And I think there's some very concrete things you need to think about in a really different way. First, you need to think about going from change as the unusual thing to change as kind of the normal thing. So rather than corporate changes happening irregularly and infrequently, we want to think about continuous reconfiguration. And how do you do that? Next, you want to think about being able to exit declining lines of business, lines of service, product categories gracefully. I call this a healthy disengagement. And it's hard to do unless you've really got the right processes in place to make that happen. But if you don't do it, what ends up happening is you cling on far too long to something that's really not going to be part of your future. Better to exit, get the resources freed up, get into innovations. The third thing I really want you to think about is separating out the power structure in your organization from your resource allocation process. And this is hard because a lot of times the powerful people in a company get to call the shots about where the money gets spent. And we don't want that. What you want is somebody able to look at your whole portfolio and say, where do we need to be investing our resources today so that we have a healthy and prosperous future tomorrow? The fourth thing I think you want to get very smart about is innovation. And in a lot of companies, innovation gets talked about a lot, but it really doesn't happen. And why doesn't it happen? Because we don't have a process for it. We don't have a routine, regular way of doing innovations, in short, an innovation proficiency. So we'll talk about how we need to get at that. Next, we have leadership. And I think this fast-moving economy places a need for different kinds of leaders on organizations. You need people who are capable of seeing the data, picking up the early warnings, and then acting on them. You don't want people who are clinging to the past or who are unwilling to face current realities. And finally, I want each of us to be thinking about what we need to do to make ourselves valuable, to make ourselves healthy, to actually thrive in an environment that's so volatile and full of so much change. We're really going from a world where your career was determined by some organization to a world where your career is determined more and more by you. In short, I think we're all entrepreneurs now, and we need to be able to think that way. So, a very concise set of things that you need to be learning to thrive in the transient advantage economy.